Amanda.
Hey, Tommy.
Hey, do you want to go down to the pitch and watch the Derby with end-to-end stuff while it's still early doors?
I do.
Do you have any idea what any of that stuff means?
I mean, if I don't, I'm going to learn probably from our friend Ted Lasso.
Yeah, because like him, we're Americans. We don't know a lot about soccer terms or things like that. And obviously they call it football. But we are going to talk about our very positive, affirming friend, Ted Lasso.
I can't wait. And that's what we're talking about today on
Can We Talk About?
What would you rather be, a lion or a panda?
I don't have time for this.
Okay. Ted?
Gotta go panda.
Are you mad? Pandas are fat and lazy and have piss-stained fur. Lions are powerful and majestic and rule the jungle.
Try telling that to an elephant. Ooh, can I be an elephant?
Lion or panda?
Panda.
Lion! What's black and white and red all over?
I don't know what.
A panda that gets anywhere near a fucking lion. The answer is lion.
All right.
That Rebecca is an intimidating, very tall woman. I mean, the minute she locked eyes with me, I started sweating.
Oh, no. You know, she got some pencil, all right, but you just gotta hop over her.
Hi, babe.
Hey, Jamie, what would you rather be? A lion or a panda?
Coach, I'm me. Why would I want to be anything else?
I'm not sure you realize how psychologically healthy that actually is.
Can we talk about Ted Lasso?
I love Ted Lasso.
If you don't love Ted Lasso, the only way you don't love Ted Lasso is if you haven't seen Ted Lasso. That's the only way.
Well, I feel like if you haven't, well, all right. I know you meant by see the show.
Yes, if you tell me there's someone that you know that's seen this show and doesn't love it, eliminate them from your life.
What I was going to go with, too, is when you say if anyone's seen Ted Lasso, you mean the show. But even if you've at least seen like a poster or like Jason Sudeikis'
Anything.
face,
Yeah,
you can't not love Jason Sudeikis in the character of Ted Lasso. Like he's just bubbly and this entire show just encompasses like good feelings and love.
The
I don't know.
epitome of feel good. Yeah, epitome of feel good.
Yeah, I've never seen anything like it, and I remember that feeling. And I think maybe this is something we can discuss in general, but like this show came out during the pandemic, and a lot of people binge watched it, and that's how it became popular. But I also think because of its feel good nature and the time we all watched this, it was exactly kind of what we needed. And like, I don't know if this would be as popular if it didn't air during the pandemic.
I think that's a completely astute statement because I didn't watch it from the get-go. I didn't start watching it. Like I had seen previews for it and I was like, oh, I love Jason Sudeikis. Maybe I'll watch that. But also I don't think that they really marketed what the show is going to be very well in the beginning. I remember seeing, just so everyone knows, this started as a commercial. And I remember the commercials. It was for NBC's, they were going to start showing the Premier League, this football, soccer for us, soccer on the television, which I loved it because they had no script. So Jason Sudeikis and Coach Beard, who plays, and they had no script. It was complete improv. And I loved it because I love Jason Sudeikis. So I was like, oh, this is so funny. Kind of forgot that it was a commercial.
Yeah.
And people had talked about it, but I think I've mentioned this before. My pandemic situation was very different. I wasn't under lockdown. I wasn't at home. So the reason I really wanted to watch it, believe it or not, was we talked about this on the last episode. The dart scene on TikTok went viral. They showed the dart scene and it went completely viral on TikTok. I was like, what is this show? Yeah. This is incredible. I cannot wait to watch this. And I really wanted to watch it. And then like most shows in my house, my fiance was like, oh yeah, that sounds cool. And then eventually someone he is friends with was like, oh, you should watch Ted Lasso. And then he was like, hey, have you ever heard of Ted Lasso? We should watch it. I'm like, you motherfucker.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get you to watch a show for months. I think what you're saying is so honest that we wouldn't have enjoyed it without knowing like we need this happiness and we need to feel good again, because I feel like pre-pandemic it was like we were Game of Thronesing. We wanted murder.
Yeah.
We wanted and it was like if you just offered us a warm hug, we were like, especially in New York, get the fuck off of me. And then this was the warm hug that everybody needed but couldn't get. And I really I think everything about the show was done perfectly, perfect timing, perfect cast.
Yeah.
I don't think I would change a single thing. And I know that that's a bold statement.
Yeah. Well, I got to explain some behind the scenes stuff because I think it's worth mentioning, which before we go any further too, for those that don't know, if you've never seen the show or have no idea what it is, maybe you've heard of it. The concept behind the show is there's Ted Lasso. He's college football, like NCAA coach. And there's a viral video of him just like sort of dancing with his team in the locker room, being goofy, being, what think Jason Sudeikis in the like What's Up With That sketches on SNL doing that little dance he does.
Running Man dance, yeah.
Yeah, the Running Man dance. And he ends up becoming a coach of AFC Richmond, which is this Premier League team in Richmond in the UK. Without spoiling anything else beyond that, that's the setup for the series. There's a little bit more there. But I want to touch on something. And first and foremost, we can't talk about this show and its inception without talking about Brendan Hunt. And there's actually a little connection here too. So Brendan Hunt plays Coach Beard, who, by the way, makes an appearance in the show we did on our last episode, Community. Do you know where? Yeah. Do you know this fun fact?
No, I only know it as a fun fact doing the research for this, but I do not remember it.
So one of my favorite scenes from Community, to go back, that we never actually talked about, that I loved, was there's an episode in Community where, I forgot his character's name. We just did this episode a week ago, and I already forgot his name.
Which one? Jeff?
Jeff, yes. Jeff Winger.
Yes.
Sorry.
Okay.
There's an episode where Jeff Winger is sort of avoiding the group, and he pretends to be sick so he doesn't have to help them move or anything. And when he's doing that, he's actually at the mall, and he has the deans with him. And the dean knows that he's sort of like lying to his friends and trying not to hang out with them. And then he ends up taking him to a karaoke studio where they end up singing Kissed by a Rose, which is one of my favorite scenes of Jeff Winger.
Classic.
And the dean singing
Classic
Kissed by a Rose. That is intercut with a scene of Britta and Shirley giving a homeless man a ride in their car. And the homeless man starts singing Jesus Loves Marijuana. That homeless man is Brendan Hunt.
Oh,
so that was like his one appearance there. But anyway, that was the connection to this. That. In this podcast, we just did an episode about Community in there.
Can we talk about universe?
Yes, in our broad the cinematic universe. But here's the thing. So Brendan Hunt was in Second City in Chicago, where I think even there he might have even worked with Jason Sudeikis, but he went to Amsterdam to perform in a group called Boom Chicago. But he lived in Amsterdam for a while and then came back to the US and then did an entire one-man show based around his time living in Amsterdam. Then he worked with Jason Sudeikis on the movie We're the Millers. And I think that's where they connected a little bit more. And then they ended up working and doing that thing for NBC, which was the Ted Lasso kind of interstitials, and then led to that. And then I'll be honest, I don't know if you actually know this, but then the other person who's involved in this show, who I have opinions about, and I'll share somewhere during this episode, is Bill Lawrence, who is the creator of Cougar Town, who we also talked about last week, and more famously, Scrubs. But those are the minds behind the series. And before I shut up for a couple minutes and let you talk, there was one thing I noticed in this episode without maybe a slight spoiler here, but it was something that you had mentioned a while on another episode we did about Apple products. Now, clearly this series is for Apple Plus or Apple TV Plus, their VOD network. But when the show starts up, we have Rebecca, who seems like she's going to be the antagonist, seems like she's going to be the person that's going to be the bad guy for the series. But I noticed right up front, she's using Apple products.
She's got an iPhone. Yeah.
She's got an iPhone. She's using an Apple laptop. And anyway, I was like, well, maybe. And I was thinking in my head, and I'm like, well, it's on Apple's service. So clearly, I got to imagine everyone's going to use it. But I think, honestly, next season will be more interesting to see, because I feel like we finally have a villain coming to the show. I don't want to jump ahead too far, but we have a pseudo villain brewing for the new season that's
which broke my heart.
Soon.
But yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, sorry, I'm going ahead too far. I'm jumping ahead too far.
No, that was a perfect lay. You got to lay the ground floor for this. But this show, again, I feel like it's going without saying, if you haven't seen the show, there definitely will be spoilers once we get into favorite episodes and things that we talk about. So there will be spoilers.
Yeah.
Just a fair warning. So watch the show first and then come back to us, because the new season is coming out, which is why we are recording this now and excitement for that.
Which, by the way, I should say before you continue, episodes of this podcast live in infamy. We're recording this ahead of the release of season 3. So we're just talking about seasons 1 and 2.
Just seasons 1 and 2.
Yeah.
Completely.
So when you're talking about,
that's a good call.
This happened or something about Nate, which is inevitable, is like we have no idea if that happened in season 3 because we haven't gotten it yet. So
Nate the Great, my ass. So
Nate the Great.
With the exception of Jason Sudeikis bringing me to this show, huge Brett Goldstein fan. And I love him as a comedic writer. And one of my favorite stories, once you get into the cast and why they cast and who they cast, but Brett Goldstein was a writer on the show. And as he's writing Roy, was like, I can play Roy. Like, this character is me. I can play this. And just randomly sent an audition tape to the producers and was like, listen, if this is good, great, you can watch it. And if you don't want to and you're embarrassed, we can pretend this never happened and we don't have to talk about it. And it was just like, sent that in an email with an audition tape and was just like throwing it out there. But I can't imagine anyone else playing that character. Could you?
Yeah. No, absolutely not.
I could not.
And he's such a unique character. Like, again, I started watching the show from the beginning ahead of us recording this episode. And, I feel like his voice changes a little bit. Like, he finds his groove later on, but even like just the squinting of the eyes and like just like his look. And then you hear him in person and he doesn't sound like that. Like he's but obviously it's put on, but I love the fact that he was a writer on the show and then was like, I can do this. I can
totally do this. And it's also Hannah Waddingham, who is very popular in like the West End theatrical productions. Like, she's very well known in that world. And I wasn't really familiar with her, but she is fucking incredible. She plays Rebecca, who is the owner of the team who divorces her husband. And in the divorce, her husband, who's played by Anthony Head, she gets the soccer team, football team. Yeah. We're going to fuck that up so many times. I'm sorry. She gets the team in the divorce. And her whole big plan is, let me hire this coach from America who knows nothing about soccer and is just going to drive this fucking team into the ground. My ex-husband loves this team more than anything in the universe. And I'm going to implode it and turn it into a pile of shit because he cheated on me a quadrillion times. Yeah. And then eventually, as the show grows, Jason Sudeikis / Ted Lasso comes into this with the biggest heart, trying so hard, wants to do so much for the team. And she finds that heart and she backs him and it becomes this beautiful feel good story. Something that I think is really important to talk about when you talk about Ted Lasso, especially season 2, it is a beautiful display of how important it is to support men's mental health. Yeah. It is important and it's so beautifully portrayed and it is raw and it is probably, I would say, the best depiction on television of somebody, just to kind of tie that back to Lasso's character, has really bad panic disorder and anxiety attacks. And they eventually get a therapist for the team played by Sarah Niles, who is incredible. And Ted Lasso is just his character is super fun loving and funny. And you would think there's nothing wrong with him. And then behind the scenes, he has his panic attacks as he's going through a divorce. And it's this whole big thing. But they show peeling those layers off until he can finally like confront what's really causing those things. As funny and feel good as the show is, I feel like there's such an underlying tone to how important the show was, especially going at the time it was, during the pandemic. People were watching this. At first you're like, oh, a show about sports. And then it just becomes so much more. And I don't know if we're painting the picture, but it is hilarious. It might be one of the funniest shows I've seen in years as far as writing and attention to detail.
I'll tell you this. And I had to pull up the name of the episode. So it's season 1, there's an episode called Make Rebecca Great Again. And you literally stole my line, which is, as someone who has suffered from anxiety attacks, depression, and things like that in the past and still do, watching Ted, I cried. I'll flat out say
I did as well. And my fiance would not be ashamed for me to tell you he did as well. It was hard cries. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a scene in there. If you haven't seen it, just stop right now and don't spoil this for yourself. But there's a scene in that episode. It's Make Rebecca Great Again. See, episode 7 of the first season. The team is out on the town, and Ted is dealing with like the stress of like, you know, his divorce or impending divorce again. And he's not trying to, and I think that's it too, is you empathize with him and what his struggle is of like, you know, a family and a relationship and like ending and out of your control and not what you want, but sort of what is happening and, or what you have to do or some combination of there. But yeah, like there's the depiction of him having a panic attack. And I said this to my wife at the time too. I'm like, this is like, I've never seen a show depict like as like closely and like capture the essence of what it's like to have a panic attack and be in that kind of situation and not the outside looking in, but like from his perspective, that feeling and overwhelming and also just not being in a safe place. Cause obviously he's out they're in Liverpool. They're not in their hometown. And so they're traveling, they're away from home, and he's out. He's not even at his hotel at that point. And that leaving a safe space and being away from a safe place and suffering from that is, you know, sort of compounds on it. But amazing depiction. And yeah, to your point too, and maybe it's because I've been close to it too, but like through the second season where, you know, it's pushed upon the team and Ted to have a therapist and like, you know, someone to talk to and trying to crack the Ted code, if you will. I'm like, Ted doesn't need this. I'm like on Ted's side for a little bit. I'm like, he doesn't need this. Why are you trying to like, he's a positive person and all this other stuff. And I think that's the thing is everything might seem perfect or there are people. And I feel like, you know, I feel like I've gone through this too of everything's fine. I'm swallowing the pain and everything I'm putting out is, you know, I'm not lashing out at people. I'm not doing anything bad. I'm the nicest person you can meet. So why are you trying to change that? And I think that's, they tackle that in the second season, especially. And so, yeah, just in general, this show tackles a lot of, and again, perfect for the pandemic world, like
it
tackles
does,
so much in mental health. Yeah,
it does. And one of my favorite moments is when Ted starts. So there's, again, we're going to give stuff away, so I do apologize, but he, you know, everybody has to meet with this therapist and he's just so fun loving. And it kind of reminded me about the way that everybody felt when Robin Williams died, right?
Yeah.
How could Robin Williams die by suicide? He was the happiest person in the world. He makes everybody laugh. And sometimes it's those people who are, you know, outwardly, like you just said, the nicest, the happiest, the best comedians that suffer the most inside. And that episode where he finally breaks in her office, it was just, now we know why. Fun fact, Amanda, fun fact, that this show broke the Emmy record, right? Was it the Emmy record?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Beating Glee.
Yeah.
But there's just so many scenes in the show that are so important, but surrounded by so much comedy because it's such like a heartbreaking scene. And then you're laughing because of that stupid dog bobblehead thingy. You're like, then you're laughing. Like it's immediate. Yeah. It's so important. You're so caught up in the emotion and then you're laughing and they do it so well. They do it seamlessly.
Yeah. Again, major spoilers. I want to keep saying it every time I get into something where I'm like, this would ruin it for someone. The first season kicks off and as you mentioned with like the setup of, you know, Rebecca is setting Ted up for failure. She wants the soccer club, the football club to fail. She wants it to fall apart. She wants it to just be, you know, I can say it in 7 different ways, and then all of a sudden, as we start getting towards the end of the first season, it starts getting closer to Ted's going to find out that Rebecca set him up, that this was, and this is the big. And then the show subverts your expectations of not the characters or anything, but of a show itself, of a sitcom or drama or dramedy, whatever you want to characterize this as. It subverts that expectation by Ted being like, it's okay. Yeah. Like just, all right,
I get it.
It's not a conflict, right? Yeah. Right. Conflict is supposed to be like, this is building up, you know, someone's going to find something out and they're going to react to it. And Ted doesn't react. And he just is like, I forgive you. It's okay. We're done. Like, and then there's no conflict anymore. And that's the thing too, is, you know, before that even happens about him finding out, Rebecca turns and becomes I feel like everyone is like, Ted Lasso's kindness is like a virus that spreads throughout Richmond and the people around him.
Absolutely.
Everyone starts by, who is this wanker and why is he coming here? And this is crazy.
Doesn't
and
even know the rules of soccer. Doesn't even know a single rule.
And then they all begin to love Ted and fall for everyone at first sort of thinks like, oh, what's this guy's shtick, right? No one's this happy. No one's this positive all the time. And you do find out a little bit more about his backstory and things like that, but nothing where it's the facade never comes down. This is who Ted is. And it almost is a commentary on the world itself. I'm not trying to get too deep here, but it's almost a commentary on the world itself of it's okay that people like this can exist, right? This is a world where, like, I think even today we're still like, we don't have a new Mr. Rogers in our world, right? Like everyone is so easily and quickly disappointed by your heroes in this world today. We don't have Bob Rosses. We don't have Mr. Rogers, right? Those people don't seem to exist anymore. Or is it that, or is it we just kind of given up and we've become pessimistic? I've seen people pessimistic about this show. I think there's been articles written about like, oh, how, the things that I think I love about the show, which is the fact that there isn't a lot of conflict, but how do you have a sitcom with no conflict? It's like, no, there's little things. It captures the nuances of relationships and family and love and all these different things in not over the top ways and takes a more positive spin on it, but in a still entertaining way, which aside from the language, it could be a family show aside from,
the language makes it.
Yeah. The language is the only thing that probably turns it away from being like a family.
Best.
Like, yeah. Otherwise, this is something that could have been on like TGIF in the 90s, maybe if it was a studio setting. But anyway, whole point there is even in people writing up about this show, they have a pessimistic look on like, oh, it's a show with no direction, or it's a show that like, there's no, like, what's the conflict? Who's the good guy and the bad guy? Like, what's actually happening? And I think it's a poor way to look at the show. And I think it sets a reflection on us as a society of being like, no, like, why can't this be a character? It is enjoyable to watch. And just shedding itself of like, no, there's not going to be some back and forth, or like Rebecca is working against Ted and then he finds out and then he lashes out or whatever. It's like, no, like that's egos. Yeah. That's things that your expectation of conflict is the problem itself. But
I feel like the conflict in this show is just like, yes, it starts out with little like, Hannah Waddingham, Rebecca, she is, like you said, going to be the conflict. But I feel like they eventually just make like everyday life is the conflict. Like bad shit happens to good people. And how do you get through that? And Jamie Tart, who plays, he's the number one player on the team, bit of a fucking douchebag. He's like so full of himself. He's dating Keely Jones, played by Juno Temple, who is so fucking funny in the show. Yeah. And they break up. He gets traded to another team or goes to another team for more money and kind of leaves the team fucked, like completely fucked. Like he was their whole thing. And how are we going to recover from that? And you hate him, right? Like you hate him. And there's a little conflict there. You're like, what a fucking asshole. This guy sucks. Yeah. Good for Keely. Now she's going to date Roy, who's played by Brett Goldstein. Like good for her. Yeah. And then it comes back around in true Ted Lasso fashion that you realize that he's not an asshole. He comes from a really shitty family with a father who only gives a shit about what clout he can get from his son. Yeah. And then before you know it, the end of season 2, you're like a diehard Jamie Tart fan. Yeah. He's one of the funniest characters on the show. Yeah. It shows that characters can be redeemed. People can be redeemed. And that's the thing too. Like I'm even looking through like some of like the synopsises for the episodes. And for the most part, something else we got to talk about Nate eventually, but like aside from like things sort of building up and everything, you don't necessarily see like, oh, this is the episode where this happens. Like the Christmas episode in season 2 is like Roy and Keely attempt a romantic, sexy Christmas, but it's derailed because Roy's niece, Phoebe, visits. That like, is so, no, that the Christmas episodes in this show in season 1 and season 2 are quite possibly some of my favorite episodes in television history, especially season 2's episode. I cried so hard. Yeah. I cried so hard that episode. It was just so beautiful, and you didn't think it was going to be. I also feel like there is so much attention to detail. I know that I love my fun facts and my Easter eggs, but the Easter eggs in this show are even overwhelming to me, who I seek them.
Yeah.
But like every single time I learn of, something else about the show, I'm like, this is fucking genius.
Yeah.
Very similar to Community. We didn't even get to touch on all of them, but there's so many. Yeah. I didn't know until like 2 weeks ago when we said we were going to do this episode that Jason Sudeikis' uncle is George Wendt, who played Norm in Cheers.
Yeah.
And Jason Sudeikis loves Cheers, obviously. And there's so many Cheers references in this show. And then in like the locker room, there's a picture of Roy Kent right next to a picture of George Wendt in Cheers, signed to Jason Sudeikis or signed to Ted Lasso. And I was like, this is incredible. And it's so fucking funny. I think it's actually is it in the kebab place, the picture?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know.
I think it's in Roy's favorite kebab place.
Kebab shop?
In the same, it's in the kebab place. And then on the same wall, there's a picture of the guy from Marcus Mumford from Mumford & Sons. Do you know this story?
No.
Jason Sudeikis and Marcus Mumford, became very good friends when Marcus Mumford was on Saturday Night Live. Yeah. And then it was you'll know better than I will. It was like Jason Sudeikis, Ed Helms, Jason Bateman. They were in the Hopeless Wanderer music video.
I didn't know this. No, I didn't know any of this.
This is, I'm impressing you with things that look at me go. So they were in his music video for Hopeless Wanderer for Mumford & Son, but I think Marcus Mumford's solo now. But when it came time to writing the score for this show, Jason Sudeikis was like, could you score the show? So the whole show is scored by Marcus Mumford. And in the same kebab shop where the picture of the Cheers guy is a picture of him saying something like, your kebab place has no damn right to be this good, Marcus Mumford. It's like,
that's awesome. I had no idea.
Oh, there's so many tiny, tiny little details that I don't know them. Someone else finds them for me and tells me that they exist. But
it's funny too, is that Jason Sudeikis, which we got to talk about him for a second, because he's amazing. He's so likable as a person. I think between him and his fellow SNL cast member, which we have to do an episode on. Have you seen Barry on HBO? I think I've asked you this offline, maybe.
No, that is one that we have to plow through because, like you said, the episodes are they're like very digestible, short, 30-minute episodes, right?
Yeah, but where I was going with that is like Bill Hader is like another between Bill Hader and Jason Sudeikis out of that era of SNL are like two guys that like I would love to hang out with Jason Sudeikis or Bill Hader, like, and just chat with them about the world. And I think they're also, both of them are seemingly very down to earth. I think Sudeikis has kind of built a reputation of himself to be a likable person. And part of that, which we should touch on, we got to get past it at some point. Might as well do it early.
This makes me sad.
Is the fallout of his relationship, not even marriage, because I don't think they weren't married, right?
No, but they had 2 kids.
Yeah.
2 kids? 2 kids.
With Olivia Wilde, who I think is universally known to have done him dirty.
Olivia.
Yeah.
She fucked him over hard. And we don't know what happened. We kind of talked about it in the beginning of this podcast about the Don't Worry Darling drama and how kind of really overshadowed an otherwise pretty good movie because it just the drama got out of control. But it makes me very sad that this happened to him because not that she's a good person, but I used to love watching Jason Sudeikis when he would either host Ellen. Like if he was on Ellen, I would just find the clip from him on Ellen because he would always reveal stuff about, I don't know if they're friends or neighbors or whatever it may be, but like their relationship and their kids. And they just seemed like the most fun. I don't know. Like it was, you know how like when Chris Pratt and Anna Faris broke up and the internet was like, no, if they can't make it, no one can. And I was like, at least we still have, Olivia Wilde and Jason Sudeikis. And then when they broke up, everyone was like, no, how is this possible?
No, honestly, I mean, I think there was the same thing for Amy Poehler and
Will Arnett, but they're best friends. Like they're still very good friends.
Honestly, I mean, at this point, I think the Kristen Bell, Dax Shepard marriage, if that fell apart, that's the last one.
No, Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Or Mila and Ashton Kutcher. If anything from that I can't.
Yeah.
I would be so sad.
Dak Shepard and Kristen Bell are meant for each other. Like that's one couple where they just seem like they are destined to be together. They've been together since 2013. So they've been together 10 years, which in Hollywood is an eternity. So,
and as much as I love Dak Shepard, he seems like a real fucking handful to be married to. So if she's putting up with it, I think he knows it's about as good as it's going to get. But in this marriage, back to Jason Sudeikis, like it just goes to show that you don't know, but it just, she kind of urged him to do this, right? Like she was kind of the one behind this. Like you need to do this. You have to do this.
Yeah.
Which makes me
and
sad.
funny enough, I thought there was crossover before, like as it was written, but it wasn't, which actually makes it sort of a little bit more heartbreaking is that because it all comes apart in the first season. And I think in the second season is when we tackle a little bit more. And that's actually when he was going through the split because the first season premiered August of 2020. And then him and Olivia Wilde split in around November of that year. So after
do you think it's because she was cheating on him with Harry Styles?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think that's what happened. I
really love Harry Styles, so I'm sad.
I know.
I was hoping you had some insight. Hope you're gonna just change it for me.
No, absolutely not. I mean, it is what it is. It's I mean, what's funny too is it's one of those things like everything else is like, oh, that's a rumor, or that's actually fake, or that was made up, or there was no PR spinning away from that. And I think the telltale sign from the inside industry, if you will, is if Olivia wanted to counter that like rumor, her PR people could have, but I think it actually worked in her interest of like, she was okay being associated with Harry Styles and it wasn't let out of PR.
Okay.
She was just, so I mean, would you,
all right.
Would you be like, hey, no. Me and Harry Styles are not in a relationship. Everyone stop saying that.
If I was married to Jason Sudeikis, I wouldn't fucking go anywhere. I don't care if I at some point in my life got his penis inside of me 2 times to make 2 children, I'm going nowhere. Yeah. So no, but I love Harry Styles. So that does make me sad. Like we've talked a lot about Jason Sudeikis. So that does suck because she did urge him to do the show. Even one of the players' last name is Cockburn, which is like a reference to her. That's her hilarious. That's her maiden name, I believe. Her family name.
Is it really?
Cockburn. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. He does a lot of that. There's like his best friend from, I don't know if it's childhood or whatever it may be. His last name is like Boomer. Brimblecom.
Is it really?
Yeah, I swear to God. And Coach Beard has it on the board with all the players when they're trying to make their plays and make their things. And Brimblecom is one of the players that he has on there. They've been friends. I think they met doing improv or something. TikTok told me, so it must be true. But this guy, Brimblecom, not Brimblecom.
Yeah.
Let's get that right. He has an organization for amputees because I guess he's an amputee and does some really wonderful things for amputees like himself. So it's a nice little touch, but there's so many players and things on the board. Like, do you know any of these?
No, what?
Like the names on the board that Coach Beard writes?
No, I don't know any. I have no fun facts.
There's such a good one. There's one episode, season 1, episode 7 in the Make Rebecca Great Again episode.
Yeah.
Coach Beard's writing names on the whiteboard and he wrote the name Hatch in the goalkeeper spot. And then if you look at the rest of the names, it's a reference to the 1981 movie Victory. And Sylvester Stallone plays a goalkeeper named Hatch. And the whole lineup on the board is the rest of the Allied side from that movie. And they do shit like that all over. Like this show has the craziest Easter eggs.
Yeah.
Which is a Jason Sudeikis thing. Like that is all.
Is it really?
100% him. He wants a callback all the time, but he doesn't want it to be like in your face. I think it's him and Brendan Hunt. They're both.
Yeah. Well, rewatching it too, I was realizing especially in the first couple episodes, there is some really amazing cinematography and the directing is really good, especially ironically enough in the episode that Zach Braff directed, which was episode 2. Like some of the cinematography and how it like captures some of like the most important things and like just the way the camera moves around too. It's understated, but and I'll use this as a segue. You talked about all these Easter eggs and things. The arc of season 2 and where we're kind of headed into season 3 is all about Nate. And I don't want to jump too far ahead, but one of the things that I saw people discuss, especially after the season 2 had ended, was how there were some grievances Nate had, like, you never did this, or you never did whatever. And they said, yeah, if you go back and watch, like, Ted didn't mean it. And clearly this kid is like suffering and dealing with his own issues internally, but Ted just being like, yeah, that's great, Nate. Or hey, yeah, thanks again. And like disregarding him without realizing he's doing it meant so much more to this kid than Ted even realized he did. And especially someone coming from someone as positive as Ted, you almost dismiss it immediately. Like, that's not, Ted didn't do that. And everyone's like, no, go back and watch. Like, Ted did do that. It wasn't intentional.
He did. Absolutely. Yeah. And I feel like watching it with a fresh set of eyes, having watched through seasons 1 and 2 once, and I did the same thing. I started back season 1 by myself a couple months ago. And watching it back, you see how hungry Nate is for positive male attention. Yeah. Like, starving for it. So you do see those moments where in Ted's mind, he's like, yeah, Nate knows I love him. Nate knows he's he's a diamond dog, woof, woof. Yeah. Like, he knows he's in there like swimwear, baby. But you also see those moments where Ted kind of throws him a bone and Nate like uses it as oxygen. Like, he lives off of that compliment, like he's going to die without it and goes to the ends of the world for that situation. So it is really sad to watch it back. And like, here's the thing. It's Ted Lasso, right? So at the end of the season, we might hate Nate. By season 3, episode 2, Nate might be our favorite character again. We just have to give it time. So his character arc, I think, is probably one of the more interesting ones, right? Because he starts off like cute little sweet Nate. He's like the equipment manager that nobody respects, but Ted sees something in him and brings him into the fold. He's getting bullied and grows up through the ranks. And then you kind of see his parents who think, this isn't good enough. What you're doing is not good enough. Oh, you're the assistant coach of a famous soccer team. Well, that's not good enough. We wanted you to be a doctor or lawyer, whatever it may be. And so, so he's got that internal battle. Again, a perfect explanation and iteration of how this show kind of touches in all aspects of, you just don't know what a person's going through. And like, you just don't know why people are the way they are. And while it's not an excuse, it gives you a really good, almost like an insight to all these people. But do you hate Nate, or do you think there's hope for him?
I mean, especially rewatching it from the beginning, there's something that Ted says to Trent.
Trent Krim, The Independent.
Yep. Exactly. I was waiting for you.
I was like, my voice needed to be lower. Trent Krim, The Independent.
Where he says his job, like, he says, like, what do you love? You love writing. Okay. Well, I love coaching. And he mentions how, it's not about which sport. He loves coaching. And it's kind of funny because, like, even in my life and like working with teams and stuff, like, it's something that I actually take to heart a lot. It's like, you feel like it has nothing to do with what you're doing, right? It's not that I can go from soccer team to soccer team or football team to football team, right? You can go from football team coach to a car factory, right? But if your job is to coach people, if your job is to do that, Ted mentioned somewhere his job is to get the best out of people. That's what his job as a coach is. And so
that hit home. That hit home for me. It really did. It hit home. I was like, oh my God, me too, Ted.
And so with what he's doing and what he did with Nate, especially when you're watching from the beginning, he's looking and like, for instance, with Roy, right? Coach Beard says, why are you winding them up? And he's like, that's the one. And he's talking about Roy. And he's like, he's the one. Because he knows that he's going to be the leader. He's going to be the one everyone looks up to. But he has to kind of like light the spark. He has to light the fuse to have him do it on his own. He can't make someone do it. And he knows what his limitations are. It has to be their own decision. And so I think, with Jamie, with Roy, Ted has a vision for this is what they need to get themselves to. This is how I have to bring out the best of them. With Nate, I don't think he's actively trying to coach Nate necessarily, but he's part of the team. And that's just, he's in Ted's circle. Ted isn't giving it a second thought, right? Ted isn't looking at him like you're broken. He's just like, you need some confidence, right? And he throws him the bones and gives him confidence when necessary. But Nate needs a lot more than that. And then on top of that too, you talk about like bringing out the best in people. He went from being this quiet, mousy, timid guy to, as soon as you give him some confidence, he sort of goes in a very negative direction because he doesn't know how to control. He's never done that. He's never been that guy. So it's his first.
He's never. I don't feel like he's ever had permission to have confidence.
Right. And so he finally has some confidence, and suddenly, which by the way, I found out was Nick Mohammed, a guy who plays Nate. It was the whole spitting on the mirror thing, which is disgusting. And I'm like, I have a hard time watching it too.
Yeah, that was spitters or quitters, Nate.
That was his choice to do as a character. Like, that wasn't in the script or anything. He thought it was something to, bring to a physical realm what his feelings of himself were, of the character. And so that comes out a few different times. And then even his sort of gross attempts with Keely at some point too, which is like, oh, now we're crossing weird lines. But it's really this guy who's been craving confidence, and he wanted to be something bigger and was always just beaten down. Well, now he's given the runway, and he doesn't know how to drive. He doesn't know how to fly a plane. He doesn't know how to, so it's interesting to see. And then it's almost like, it's a tower of cards of the confidence is just confidence, right? It's not built around as much talent as he believes. So I think with every character on the show is the closest you've actually gotten to a serious nemesis for Ted Lasso.
Fair.
But at the most, it's you sort of created a monster.
You
inadvertently.
created your own monster. Yeah.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. I feel like there's so many, Nate is really important in season 2, right? He's just an important character throughout the thing. He's a very stagnant character. But I really want to talk about the smaller characters, because I think what's another beautiful thing about this show is, while you have showrunners, right? You have the main in-your-face characters. These side characters or smaller characters, B characters, whatever you want to call them, are so fucking good.
Yeah.
Cristo Fernandez, who plays Denny Rojas.
Yeah, Denny Rojas.
He was a professional soccer player, which is even better.
I saw that.
In the auditions for the show, they said, not only send us your acting thing, but you also had to know how to play soccer. You had to have a decent set of soccer skills, which listen, Americans, we are the only country in the world that does not universally view football / soccer the way that the rest of the world does. It's the most universally viewed and adored and followed sport in the world. So I feel like every single person that was not American in this show probably had some decent soccer chops. But the guy that plays Sam is so wonderful. And the storyline that kind of happens with he and Rebecca. Oh my God, I love that storyline. But also, it's so good.
Heartbreaking.
And so heartbreaking, but one of my favorite characters, and I feel like you're going to automatically have an answer for this, is Higgins. Higgins is essentially Rebecca's assistant who just gets shit on, but is still got that kind of Ted Lasso, okay, absolutely, whatever you say, blah, blah, blah. They kick him out of his office all the time to make room for random people. He's got an office in the used equipment closet by the dirty cleats, and he's just so happy to be there. Yeah. And he is such a beautiful character in that first Christmas episode in season 1, when he has all of the team members over that don't have families. Yeah. And they have that big, beautiful dinner when he says thank you to and cheers to every individual player's hometown. It's not the hometown from the show. It's their actual hometowns. Yeah. Where the actor's from. Yeah.
I didn't realize. That's great. That's another
That's
Easter
such
egg.
A good episode. Oh, God. And my fiance's probably favorite line is Danny Rojas shows up with I'd call it jungle juice, but it's like sangria, maybe, I don't know. And he's like, hey, I brought you some cocktails, and he's like, you can get a little cheeky and add some alcohol to it. And he's like, Danny, this one smells like it has alcohol. And he goes, that one comes pre-cheeked. It's pre-cheeked.
Yeah.
But I also feel there's just so many good characters.
Yeah, well, I was going to say too, one of my favorites that comes out in season 2, and he's a guest star for a couple episodes, is Sam Richardson, who I love. Sam Richardson. because I'm a huge fan of Detroiters, and I think you should leave with Tim Robinson, which we're going to do an episode on. And then he's in The After Party, which is also another Apple TV series. Did you watch that?
Mm-mm. Is it good?
It's supposed to be. I haven't seen it yet, but I feel like that's another one's going to get added to our list at some point because that's being renewed as well too. So we'll have to do it. It's coming out this year. But also one of my favorites, and I have to have a crush on someone every TV show, but like Annie Edison was the one from Community on the last episode we did.
Yep.
And I think I'm looking at it from Ted's perspective, and I hope she comes back. But I love Ted with Sassy.
I hope it happens. I really do hope it happens. And to go back to Sam Richards, so like that whole storyline with him, and it's really dark, right? Like when he's trying to get him to come play for the,
Sam.
It's dark, but it's also really important. I think that people kind of see that side with him and Sam. So essentially he's like, offering life-changing money to Sam to be the spokesperson for this company. When Sam's father finds out about it, is like, Sam, you can't do that. I believe Sam's from Nigeria, and he's like, they are ruining Nigeria. Like they're killing our wildlife, blah, 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 drilling for oil, all this stuff. And Sam ultimately ends up turning it down. And it is just like, what an incredible character Sam is. An incredible person. But it was...
Poor
God,
Sam.
How much that must... Yeah, poor Sam. He just keeps losing
Sam goes
left
through a
and
lot.
Right. He
Sam
really
goes through
does,
a lot
and he's
in
so
the second
happy
season.
and sweet. When they're texting on, what's it called? Banter instead of Tinder?
Yeah.
Okay. So the name that he has and the name that Hannah Waddingham's character, Rebecca, has. Do you know this story?
No.
Really? This is a Tom story. Their two names on there are... Hers is Boss Girl, and his is LDN 152.
Okay, what's LDN 152?
It is London 152, and hers is Boss Girl.
Okay.
It's an homage because it's like the rom-com story kind of for the show. An homage to You've Got Mail, because Meg Ryan was Shop Girl, and Tom Hanks was NY 152. And that was Jason Sudeikis is like, we have to do it. It wrote it in there.
Great.
I know.
Wow, that's great. I didn't know that. Wow.
Again, this show is wild with their attention to detail. Did I know that? No, Twitter told me.
Yeah. I'll take it. I like it. Did you have the same feelings I did though on Sassy though? Before I just to touch on that.
Yeah, we need to go back to Sassy.
Yeah.
She was.
I feel like you would identify with Sassy in general. though.
But she is, I fucking love Sassy. She is the no bullshit, ride or die, I have your fucking back till the end of time.
Yeah.
Who, when she wants to get down, she gets down.
Yeah.
I love me some Sassy. I love her character.
And I think this is what I love about the show is you have an expectation of these type of characters from other shows. And so here comes Rebecca's best friend, old best friend. You've never met. She's a little bit over the top and she's outgoing and stuff. And I think on any other show, that person is the swindler, right? They're trying to get over on someone.
Yeah. You just described me.
They're the one that, like, there's a scene where Sassy is alone with Keely and you're like, oh no, what's going to happen?
The old best friend and the new best friend. Yeah.
Right. And then it's like, it subverts that. And it's just like, no, she's just a cool person. She's a cool chick. And then she's into Ted a little bit, which I like too. I'm like, go Ted. Good,
I
good for
really
him.
like it. I hope it happens. Yeah.
His personality and her personality, just like, you know, like if something positive to come out this man is always, you know, you want it. You're thirsty for it. But there's something else I want to talk about. Change subject.
Okay, me too. But I want to see what you want to talk about, and then if it matches what I want to talk about. So you go first.
I doubt it. This is already it's all inside baseball stuff that I love to talk about. Inside entertainment kind of stuff.
Ahead.
There's a third person, and I mentioned it up front. There's three people. There's four, but generally there's a third person involved in the show.
Yeah.
Which is Bill Lawrence. Now, Bill Lawrence did Scrubs famously, and we're going to focus on Scrubs for a moment. If you don't remember, did you watch Scrubs?
Sure did. Yeah.
Okay. All the seasons of Scrubs?
Nope.
Okay.
Hard pass. Nope.
Yeah. Okay. So for those that don't know, Scrubs ran for 9 seasons which was a few seasons too long, at least one season too long. So
no, you lost me at 7. I quit.
Yeah,
at 7.
well, sorry. After 7, it leaves NBC, and then season 8 it got picked up to continue for 19 more episodes on ABC. So ABC came in, saved the day, gave him one last season. The end of that season, the episode is called My Finale. It was meant to be a series finale. And then ABC is like, come on, Bill, here's some more money. And then you get Scrubs, the New Class, or what was it actually called? It was like Scrubs Med School.
Couldn't tell you.
The show limped on with Zach Braff briefly in the show. And it became like, do you remember like Saved by the Bell, the New Class, where it was like just Screech and Mr. Belding? Yeah. That's what this became, except it was Turk and Dr. Cox. And that's pretty much it. And then it was all new faces. Like Dave Franco was on that show, which a lot of people seem to forget. And they had a new girl who was the new JD called Denise Mahoney. And so the show sort of like kept limping on as like oh, geez, we're just going to keep going with this because ABC gave Bill Lawrence more money. Going back to Ted Lasso, when the show was developed, and we have yet to know what's going to happen here, but Jason Sudeikis said somewhere that he had an idea of a story arc to bring the show for 3 seasons, and that's it, and wrap it up. And famously, in the press, Bill Lawrence has said that he is trying to convince Jason Sudeikis to keep going. I'm like, don't do that.
You money hungry.
Don't turn this into right. This is a guy who did 9 seasons of Scrubs and Cougar Town and a bunch of other things too. But he's like, don't turn this into Scrubs. Like we were talking about last week about like how we now binge shows and like they live on in legacy and we'll watch these forever now. Keep that in mind with this show. Do you want Ted Lasso to go 7 seasons where like it's like Ted leaves and it becomes Coach Beard is the new Lasso, where they bring in like, you know, they jump ahead a few years and Ted's son grows up and he becomes the coach, or like it's stupid. Don't do that. Please let this show
like Girl Meets World.
Right. Oh God. Oh my God. I remember that.
Yeah. We need to do Boy Meets World because that's one of the best shows of my life. But
do you think the show could keep going, or do you want, because it's a tough call because we're about to go into the 3rd season. This could be the last.
Here's the thing. I feel like this is end of episode commentary for me, but I'll say it now and then. I selfishly could watch Ted Lasso for the rest of my life, but I want to watch this version of Ted Lasso.
Yeah.
Therein lies the problem.
Yeah.
We all know when a show comes out, hits the ground running, much like Community, it's so strong in the beginning. There is nowhere for it to go but down.
Yeah.
Stay strong.
Yeah.
And if Jason Sudeikis, who created this world, created Ted Lasso, created this universe, is saying that he's written it through 3 seasons, don't extend it. If you want to do a runoff, do a runoff. Do another completely different show. Take some of the characters, take some of the storyline, do what you're going to do. I just feel like this is too fucking precious to ruin.
Yeah, I have a similar feeling.
Selfishly, of course. But
yeah, but I mean, it's kind of funny too, because like we haven't done an episode on it yet because I feel like it's a tentpole. It's a big one. But like The Office, right? Like The Office, like once Michael Scott leaves, I'll watch a few episodes of like them going through the shuffle and Will Ferrell being silly and dying real quick or whatever the hell happens to him. But then it sort of like trails off, and then I'm like, all right, I'm just going to start at the beginning, right? Because the characters go off and become. You know, we talked about it briefly on our last episode too, about how like a show can just sort of devolve into just being like a shell of itself or a ghost of itself because it's not what it used to be. And I think some shows can go through phases, right? I think with Community, when we talked about it too, it was like the show found itself and then kept its voice. It was silly. It knew what it was, but it was that through the end. The Office is one where it took a little bit, found its voice, and then lost its voice, and then just trailed off somewhere. Any show that goes on too long, it was the same thing with Scrubs. Like, even the last season of Scrubs was not great, but like once it wrapped up, tied its bow, just let it go. Like, it's okay to like say goodbye to the show. Seinfeld famously went out on top, right? 9 seasons.
Yeah,
the first season's tough to watch, but like you get through, like I think it's like season 2 even. Like I've gone back to like figure out when the right spot to start Seinfeld is. And it's somewhere like season 2 or 3. But even that thing, it's like, it doesn't wear its welcome. It doesn't wear out where it's like, oh, well, okay, enough already. Like, I think shows like How I Met Your Mother had that problem too, where they just went on way too long and you're just like treading water for a while and you forget what your purpose is anymore. So I don't want that to happen to Ted Lasso.
I don't either.
I'm worried that Bill Lawrence is involved for that, but I like Bill Lawrence otherwise.
Let's see, right? Let's hold out hope. I really do want to talk about 2 things to touch on. One of the most beautiful friendships, I think, between females is between Rebecca and Keely. The way that their friendship evolves and like it's just coming from a female point of view, having done the rom-com episode with your wife, this is it's a beautifully written female friendship that starts off so ridiculous and they hate each other. And Brett Goldstein actually said when they first started writing Keely, she was not supposed to be funny. But because Juno Temple, who plays Keely, is so fucking funny, they were like, we have to make her funnier. Like, she deserves to be funnier. And Juno Temple was like, if you don't make me funny, I don't want to do the show. And Roy and Keely end up dating. One of my favorite episodes is when Roy, who is like the super duper uncle to his niece, she has bad breath and they walk around the whole rich neighborhood trying to find a dentist because like we're in a rich fucking neighborhood, someone's bound to be a dentist, and they knock on all these doors to try and find a dentist for his niece to get her medication for her bad breath. And I don't know, I feel like that really encapsulated Keely Jones' character. She was just so fucking funny and endearing and she's smoking fucking hot, but so funny. Like, she can do both. And so I just wanted to pay her a little homage because I really like her. But we have to talk about the Coach Beard episode that is just Coach Beard going fucking ham. And people that don't know, but it was Kyle's favorite episode, our Kyle that Tom and I share, my fiance's brother. It's his favorite episode. And he had warned us. He's like, when you get to the Coach Beard episode, you are going to lose your mind. It was incredible. He essentially just goes on this insane night full of, it's like almost like a mini movie. He's like in a rave, then he's in like this crazy seance-y speakeasy situation. Then he's fighting crime and getting weird pants. And Brendan Hunt is like he's obsessed with Burning Man. Yeah. Really? Him as a person. Yeah. Yeah. And he has a Burning Man like 2000 something poster in his apartment as Coach Beard. And he is apparently like driven that episode. And when he created the episode, was just like, I want people to see like Coach Beard is a Burning Man diehard rave fanatic, which that episode is just fucking nuts in the very best way possible.
Well, what I love about that too is Coach Beard is this, quiet, Silent Bob-esque kind of character on the side at almost all times. And then you have an entire episode devoted to his sort of chaotic journey on overnight in Manchester City.
He's so weird. It's fantastic.
It is where it takes place, right? It does take place in Manchester City.
I don't remember. Crazy, I trust you on this. Yeah.
Sure. I'm probably wrong, but
doesn't he get beat up by Jamie Tartt's dad in that episode too? Jamie Tartt's dad beats him up.
Is that the episode? I didn't know that. Is that true?
Yeah, Beard After Hours. Yes.
I believe you. Yeah.
That's so fucking funny. It's so good. He goes into a nightclub under a church, and I just love that episode. I just love him. Coach Beard's a wonderful character, and he's so weird, and he's in like, because he's so unassuming, I love that his relationship is the most tumultuous of the show. He's in the will they, won't they, on again, off again relationship with a chess master like himself. It's just so weird.
Well, and two, I mean, I think his subtlety of like how he sort of compliments Ted in general, like we already touched on Nate, but like he sort of foresees Nate unraveling, but doesn't intervene because that's not the way you do things in Ted's world. That's right. His words were like, just like do better, right? That was it. He said to like Nate.
Yeah.
Or be better.
Just do better. It's hard. That's hard though. Like, isn't that hard to like, now that we know what Nate's really become, like he doesn't know what that means. He doesn't know how. Just to rewind for 1 second, and I'm sorry I'm doing this. I should have said this there,
but I do have a quote to mention regarding new seasons and stuff. And maybe this actually might be a good place to stop because it ties it in a bow.
Well, I have one question for you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Before we tie up.
Yeah.
So one of Rebecca's whole storyline is she is a beautiful, successful, talented, lovely woman who just cannot find love, right? Like that's her big thing is she just keeps getting taken advantage of. And there's this beautiful scene where Roy tells her they go on a double date with this guy that she meets and Keely's like, he's fine. And she's like, he's fine, right? Yeah, he's just fine. And Roy's like, don't fucking settle for fine.
Yeah.
Like you deserve more than fine.
Yeah.
And you just really just see, again, great storyline for Roy, but you just see how wonderful she is. And I just want to know if there was a part of you that's like, okay, this is, I see both sides.
Asking me?
Her and
Okay.
Ted. Okay.
No. It's really funny too, is I thought about this a lot, is
me too. So I kind of want to talk about it.
There are moments like I think the show has done it in a few different aspects, right? I think I went back and again, I rewatched it from the beginning and in episode 1, there's like some camera angles and stuff that lead you to believe that, and the interaction between like Ted and Keely, like, oh, is that something that's going to eventually happen? Right.
Mm-hmm.
But that
also thought that. Okay.
Sort of disappears quickly. Right. And obviously she's with Roy. And then I think that's sort of an expectation you have. But again, it's not based on anything between them. I think it's based on your expectations of a show. Yeah,
yes.
No, but there is. But that's where it becomes where it's a show where it's like a guy and a girl can just be friends. It's okay. Like there is no expectations of like, oh, it's a man and a woman, so they have to fuck. Clearly, like it's you're.
I wouldn't hate it.
Yeah. No, but I think
hate
at
it.
the same time, yeah, but that's what I mean too. Is like, Ted is this force, and that's why I think I liked him with Sassy, because Sassy she had the confidence and she knows who she is, and Ted is this wonderful guy, and she sees that, and she's like. No one is relying on each other necessarily, right? I don't think Ted is the kind of person who needs someone to rely on. You see that in his relationship with his wife, as she's like, I need my space, right? There's I think it's the first or second episode where he calls home and he's like, hey, like once we get things settled, love to have you guys come here. And then you pause because you don't hear the other end of the conversation. He's like, no, I thought I was giving you space. Like she immediately is like, obviously it's on the other end is like, I needed my space. Like that's what I said. And like already shutting him down on him, just like looking like I want my wife and kid to come to where I am and come see this. And he gets sort of shot down immediately. What I loved about sort of the dynamic he had with Sassy in that brief fling was it seemed like that's the kind of person that Ted can kind of needs. Right. I think with Rebecca, to Roy's point, don't settle. Like she knows what she needs. She knows the kind of person she is. I'm, clearly for her and Sam, I'm upset. That's a heartbreak,
God,
right? Because like from the start,
work.
you're just like, it wasn't going to work. Everyone wants it to work, but it's like, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
But maybe it's also good for them. Yeah. But I don't know. I think Ted and Rebecca would be a bad thing for them. I think their friendship is what thrives.
Okay, I agree. The biscuits, we didn't really even talk about the biscuits, the way that he makes her biscuits every day and she's like, where are these biscuits from? And eventually you find out they're Ted's and he's been trying to perfect this recipe for her. And there's even a scene where he's like mad at her. She does something and he's really pissed at her. I think it's when she trades Jamie Tart or something like that. And he was like super mad at her. And then he's like, God damn it, I'm giving you these biscuits. It's the best batch yet. Yeah. And it's just like this little pink box of Ted Lasso love.
Yeah.
But in the beginning, of course, that's what you want, right? But then as watching the show, I think what's so beautiful about their friendship, and my favorite episode is the second season with the Christmas episode, is they are both so emotionally broken, but they find strength in their friendship and they can come to each other very vulnerable and be with each other in friendship with vulnerability. And I think you're 100% correct. Just finding a show that shows you can be friends with someone with the opposite sex and not fuck them. And it can still make for great television. Yeah. And there was a little like I don't have the prowess that you do to know about camera angles and that kind of stuff about how, but I felt it in the first few episodes. I was like, oh, they gonna fuck today. Back when she hates him, I'm a big enemies to lovers type person. I was like, bring it on. Yeah. But then I'm so glad that they haven't, and I'm so glad that they won't, because it is nail in the coffin. He's now had sex with her best friend. Yeah. So they never will. So no, everybody just shut your holes. It's never going to happen. Yeah. And I love their friendship, and I'm glad that they took the show that way, because I think that was also another important relationship dynamic.
Well, part of me also wonders too. I mean, it was the same thing again when talking about Community, because I think there's some pseudo connection there as far as like the type of shows they are. Dan Harmon created the first couple episodes of Community, and you can almost kind of imagine like the screening in an executive's office being like, oh, I like the dynamic between him and Britta. Will they, won't they? We can last that for a couple of seasons. So like in selling this show as a pilot of like, oh, and then there's Rebecca and maybe her and Ted, like selling it to the executives kind of thing. And then like, all right, once we're on the air, we can do whatever we want. Cool. All right, I'm just going to abandon that real quick. The camera angles of like, oh, is Jamie's an asshole, and then there's this beautiful, lovely girl, and there's Ted, like, could that become a thing? I think it's set up like that on purpose, but Ted is too, like, there's a heart in there, but he loves everyone. And so there's a difference between like love and lust and sex. And I think that's the part that gets conflated a lot in television, and life too, but in television, especially.
I agree.
Yeah,
absolutely. And I feel like too, we didn't really even talk about it, but Ted Lasso has some of the best fucking quotes. Like he just has these tiny little quotes that I love. But there's one, and I don't remember what season it's in, but he says something about wanting to see Rebecca and Michelle Obama arm wrestle. Do you remember that?
No.
And he's like, I would love to see you and Michelle Obama arm wrestle. I wouldn't be able to take my eyes off of it either. It's just like this little. First of all, Ted Lasso's quotes are incredible, but I just love the love that they have for each other and their friendship. And I'm glad that you feel the same way, because I also feel like it would have been very easy. It would have been the easy way out to make them a couple, but I feel like it would have done a great disservice to the show, and it would have been a great disservice to their character development, because they're both way too needy. They have too much emotional shit to go on. They both need somebody too badly in that situation. It would be very bad.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's the thing too, is like, Rebecca is looking for something and she needs it. And especially with what she went through with her ex-husband and the embarrassments and everything, like she needs something. And for her benefit, you don't want her to just get thrown into like, oh, cool, let's just find whatever dick we can throw at her. Like, how about this one? Here you go. Like, even the relationship between her and Sam isn't sexual, right? It's romantic. That's what she's looking for. And that's what
they don't even know each other. Yeah. They don't even know what each other looks like. And they're just having this beautiful relationship texting on banter, which is essentially Tinder, which is whatever it may be. Yeah. But one of my, just like to wrap it up for favorite Ted Lasso things, I fucking love that Ted Lasso hates tea so much. And what does he call it? Brown garbage water? What does he call it?
It tastes like brown water.
Brown water.
Dirt water or something like that.
Yeah, it's brown water or something like that. And it's just us Americans, we're not high in the tea life. But that made me fucking laugh so hard.
Well, when I've gone to London and I've tried, the attempts have been made to serve me tea, I've had the exact same Ted Lasso reaction where I'm just like, oh, you know what? When in Rome, and I take it, I'm like, nope, not for me. Like, no, thank you. Please send this back. No, this hot, disgusting water.
Garbage water.
And then also, which to me rings so truer than most, because have you ever been to London? I know you've been to Europe. Have you ever been to the UK?
No. And to measure my level of nerd, I had plans to go. This is a very hilarious Amanda story. In 2019, my fiance was going to Scotland for his college friend's wedding, and on my birthday, he flew on my birthday. I was supposed to fly 2 days later. Everyone was joking with me while I was bartending. They're like, oh, you're not going to get to go. Something's going to happen with your flight. They're grounding all these flights. And I was like, what are you talking about? Yeah. Well, my fiance was the last one. Remember those planes that were just exploding over the ocean?
Oh, my God. Yeah.
I was supposed to fly out on that plane. He flew out on the last one ever flown to Scotland because it was such a big deal. I didn't get to go on this wonderful birthday trip to Scotland, so I got to stay home. And in that trip, I was going to do a whole Harry Potter tour and go to London as well and do this whole Harry Potter tour. So I haven't been to London. I'm not bitter about it at all.
I mean, maybe for this podcast, we go on a road trip. Like,
Can we go?
Remember on TGIF, every Family Matters, Full House, they all took one episode and went to Disney World. Right?
Yes.
Because they were all owned by ABC and Disney. So, of course, they had to have an episode. I was like, we just need to do that with Harry Potter. And we'll just do a road trip episode where we go to London.
You have to have me mic'd the whole time so you can hear the tears, the shrieking. It's incredible. It's incredible.
Well, the reason I ask about it too is because, and this is, again, me understanding Ted, was he sits down at the to do the press junket and he goes to drink water and he's like, and he spits it out. He's like, oh, I wasn't expecting that to be bubbly. If you go to the UK, and I don't know if it's just the UK or Europe or what, and I asked for a lemonade, and I got a lemonade, and I went to go drink it. I'm like, this is this is carbonated. Why is your lemonade carbonated? They're like, that's lemonade. What are you talking about? I'm like, this is Sprite without the lime. What are you talking about? This isn't, Anyway, a lot of things are fizzy over there for whatever reason.
I drink water and alcohol.
Yeah.
And black coffee. So really bad guess. I can't even remember the last time I've had something that wasn't water or alcohol or black coffee, but liquid wise. So
most of my diet is Red Bull, so it's okay. We're two different sides of a coin, I guess. Well, I'll wrap it up like this. The quote I mentioned before. So the as part of the some interviews that were happening, a quote from the CEO of Warner Brothers Television said that initially the vision for the show by Jason and Bill Lawrence was that when they went into season 1 was that it would be a 3-act structure over 3 seasons. And he said, quote, then I think it becomes one of those things as you get going with it. And if you fall in love with that world and those characters, it's hard to say goodbye. But he did say, this season, which is season 3, he says the end of the season, it ends beautifully. If that is all we do within the Ted Lasso universe, I think the fans will be really happy and excited, but there's also a way to crack open a door. If we're fortunate enough to do more, we can keep going. So it sounds like season 3 does tie a bow on things, but allows it to continue if, enough money gets thrown at Bill Lawrence and Jason.
I don't know how I feel about that. I guess I have to watch season 3. I'm excited to watch season 3, but I always think about Fleabag, which I don't know if you've watched. I think I asked you if you've watched Fleabag.
I have. I want to. It's on my list because I saw one scene again, and this is how we're all discovering stuff, was via TikTok. I saw a clip from a scene where she breaks the fourth wall and look, and I was just like, this is my kind of show.
It's incredible.
This is right up my alley.
And it's 2 seasons. It's 2 seasons. And of course, I would have wanted a million more seasons, but Phoebe Waller-Bridge is just like, no, this is what we're doing. It's 2 seasons. I wrote this. This is what we have. I mean, she could have gone for 10 more seasons because her characters are not, they're again, open-ended. And I kind of, in my brain, I've been thinking Ted Lasso is like Fleabag. It's going to end perfectly and beautifully, and nothing is wrong with this show. And I would be completely okay with that. So I am anxiously anticipating season 3. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, it rides the line between being an American and a British show. And British shows tend to only last maybe 2 or 3 seasons, right? They don't go on forever unless you're Doctor Who. And even that ended for a little while. So, but yeah, I mean, I think it's okay if it ends. I think I'm okay with that. I'll be content. I think what's worse is watching any show I agree with you. There are lots of shows where I'm like, I want this to go on forever. But then you get into season 5 of Arrested Development where it's like a zombie of itself. Or they're doing the Community movie, which is coming out this year, which
6 seasons and a movie?
Exactly. So we're getting the movie, but at that point it's like, man, everyone's 10 years older than the last time we saw them. Keep that in mind. And so you're going to condense it. People, and the thing is, as people age too, it's no fault of their own, but they get slower. We talked about that with Arrested Development. Everyone's slower. Their quirks and stuff like Will Arnett's come on, from when he did it on the first season on Fox to season 5. He's like, come on, it's hard to watch, and his already raspy voice is raspier, and it's tough. So I'm okay.
That's because he smokes 2 packs a day.
Is he a smoker?
Oh, he's a smoker, and they shit on
Why
him
never do
so
that?
hard for it. Yeah.
I never knew that. But I just don't want any show like this that's so good. And I think even if this is one of the rare ones that from like episode 1, it's good. You can start from the beginning and watch it, and it's a lovely show. I don't want to see my shows zombified, where it's just like dragging along. Season 7 of The Office. You don't want that, where it's like, oh, there's this Clark Gregg or whatever his name was, like got brought in, and we have like younger cast members, and the older cast members are like shells of themselves now and caricatures of who they were. Like, it's just, you don't want to see that. No one wants to see that. So if it ends, tie a bow on it. I'm okay with that. And it's hard to say goodbye to anybody, but yeah.
It'll be nostalgic. It'll be done well, and it'll be, like we said, it lives on an infamy, but at least it'll live on an infamy with perfection.
Yes. Yeah.
So.
It's a nice tight 3 seasons. I'm okay with that.
It's toy.
Yeah. But I'm sure somewhere after this episode airs, we're going to find out whether or not the show actually ends or not.
Oh, God, I know.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, yeah.
Well, good luck to that, then.
Yeah.
Let's see what happens. We'll touch base after season 3, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of our season of this podcast, which is after some of the shows and stuff end, maybe we should have a wrap up and like a recap of all the
That's
things
a
we
good
talked
idea.
about. Yeah.
Because there's a lot that has happened even with the episodes we started with. So
I know. So we have a new Severance is coming, and we have like lots of shows to cover again.
I know.
So.
I can't wait.
So cool. All right, seasons 1 and 2 of Lasso, Ted Lasso. So
Done, and let's get ready for season 3.
cool. All right. It's
All right,
awesome.
bye, guys.
Bye.